I saw the message on my phone and froze. Don't call or come over. We're done. My mom's words were sharp, final, and chilling. For a second, I couldn't breathe. We weren't teenagers fighting over petty stuff. We were family. Or at least, that's what I had always believed. I stared at my phone for a long minute before replying. Got it. Short, calm, controlled. But inside, a storm was raging. This wasn't sudden. It had been building for weeks, maybe months. Small arguments that escalated, tiny manipulations I had ignored, every subtle guilt trip I had swallowed. I realized painfully that my mom had been testing me, pushing me, and finally, when she thought I'd reached my limit, she tried to cut me out entirely. I should have been angry. I should have called her, immediately demanded explanations, yelled, pleaded, but I didn't. I sat back, letting the words sink in. We're done. What did that really mean? Were we truly done? Or was this another test of control? I thought about the last time we had a real conversation. Honest, meaningful. It had been years ago. Everything after that was layered with judgment, expectations, and subtle manipulations I didn't even notice until now. I remembered her face just last week when she tried to guilt me for choosing a career she didn't approve of. The sighs, the disappointed looks, the silent criticisms. She always thought she could direct my life without me realizing it. And my reply, got it, was the first time I had set a boundary. No arguments, no explanations, just acceptance. But acceptance was only the surface. Inside, I was already planning. Because boundaries are powerful, but revenge is stronger. Hours passed, and then came the texts from my siblings. Subtle, probing, trying to understand my reaction. Are you okay? Mom's upset. You should call. Each one revealed their assumptions about me. They thought I would beg, I would cry, I would apologize. But they were wrong. I didn't need their validation. I didn't need to be fixed. I had been underestimated for too long, and underestimation is the perfect opening for someone like me. I smiled quietly, the kind of smile that doesn't come from happiness, but from clarity. They thought they could shut me out. They thought I would crumble. They had no idea what was coming. That evening, I started putting my plan together, not impulsive, not reckless, precise, quiet, calculated. Every step would ensure they felt the impact of their words, but without me losing a shred of control. Revenge isn't about shouting, confronting, or fighting. It's about timing, patience, and understanding human nature. And I knew exactly how to use it. By the time I went to bed that night, the storm inside me was calm, but ready. Tomorrow, everything would change. And they would finally realize when someone says, got it, it doesn't always mean surrender. Sometimes it's the start of the reckoning. The next morning, I woke with a sense of purpose. Mom's text wasn't just a rejection. It was an invitation to finally take control, to show them all that underestimating me had consequences. I started by observing quietly their routines, their assumptions, even the way my siblings talked about me behind my back. It all became part of my strategy. Every word they said, every slip, every tiny arrogance was fuel for what I was about to do. I reached out to a few people outside the family, friends who knew the truth about past manipulations, those who had witnessed the subtle games my mom had always played. Without drama, without confrontation, I gathered evidence, messages, overheard conversations, proof of how they tried to control or exclude me. Then I made a decision. I wouldn't react emotionally. No yelling, no begging, no pleading. Their shock would be my weapon. Later that week, my mom called, her voice hesitant. Honey, I just want to understand. Can we meet? I agreed, but on my terms. Neutral place. No one else present. Just us. When she arrived, her posture was cautious, her usual confidence muted. I didn't start with accusations. I let her talk first. She tried to guilt me, her words rehearsed, but shaky. We're family. You can't just disappear like this. I smiled faintly. I didn't disappear. I've been observing. I've been learning. And I've realized something very important. I'm done being manipulated. I handed her the folder of evidence, messages, timelines, all the ways she had excluded or controlled me. Her face went pale as she flipped through them. I didn't mean. You didn't mean? I asked, voice calm but firm. You intentionally tried to erase me. You thought I wouldn't notice. But I did. And now you get to face the consequences. Her hands trembled. That confidence I had grown up with, the sense of control she always carried, was gone. The realization that she had underestimated me, and that I had the power now, was undeniable. Then came the subtle shift. Her apologies, hesitant and incomplete, were no longer enough to sway me. I didn't lecture. I didn't yell. I let the truth, the evidence, and my calm demeanor do the work. They couldn't argue with facts. Later, my siblings tried to intervene, each attempt to guilt or intimidate me failing spectacularly. I had anticipated it. I had planned for it. Their reactions only confirmed my strategy. Underestimation is the perfect vulnerability. By the end of the week, the family dynamics had shifted. They were cautious, uncertain, and, most importantly, aware that I would no longer be manipulated. The subtle power they had over me for years was gone, replaced with a quiet, undeniable authority I now held. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's measured, strategic, observed, and its impact lasts far longer than anger ever could. I left the cafe that day with a sense of calm satisfaction. They had learned, slowly, painfully, that I was no longer someone to overlook or underestimate. And the best part, I hadn't even lifted my voice. The final act was coming, and when it arrived, it would be unforgettable. I didn't want a scene. I wanted something cleaner, an ending that didn't require shouting or chaos, one that made them feel the truth without me losing myself in the process. A week after the cafe, I arranged one more meeting, not in a dramatic public place, but at my sister's house. During a family dinner she'd insisted I attend. They thought I was returning to fold back into the pattern. That was their mistake. I sat at the table and let the evening unfold, polite conversation, half-laugh stories, the usual small cruelties hidden as jokes. My mom kept glancing at me, nervous and small. My sister moved plates around, trying to keep everything comfortable. Everyone assumed I'd apologize, promise to forget, to move on. They mistook silence for surrender. Halfway through dessert, I stood up. The room tightened like a held breath. Before we finish, I said, calm and even, I want to tell you one thing. No accusation, no rancor, just words. They looked at me, puzzled. When you decided I wasn't important enough to be told about my sister's wedding, you made a choice. I continued. That choice said more about you than about me. It said you preferred control over connection. It said you'd rather manage appearances than include the people who matter. My mom's face crumpled. My sister's hands stopped moving. The polite chatter died. I collected what I needed. I said, not to punish you in a cruel way, but so you'd see the consequence of underestimating someone you claim to love. I showed you the proof. You had your chance to change. For a while, you tried. Then you sent the text saying we're done. I accepted that boundary, and while I respected it, I also made a boundary of my own. I let that land. I didn't demand apologies. I didn't make them beg. I laid out what I wanted: honesty, respect, and transparency going forward, or distance. Simple terms, no theatrics. They had to choose. Silence spread for a moment, heavy and honest. Then my sister spoke, voice small. I didn't know how badly you felt. It wasn't a defense, just a truth. I shouldn't have to prove my feelings. I replied, you should show them. My mother, quieter now, said, we're sorry. Words. Thin, maybe not enough. I watched them, measured their sincerity. This wasn't about revenge as punishment anymore. It was about recalibration. I wanted a family that recognized me, not one that managed me. Over the next weeks, things changed slowly and awkwardly. My mom called without expectations. My sister texted small updates. They asked, hesitantly, for my advice on things they once assumed they knew better. The dynamic shifted because I held steady. I didn't chase reconciliation. I offered it on terms that kept my dignity intact. The real victory was quieter than I'd imagined. It wasn't their discomfort, though that came. It was the way I walked through my life afterward, lighter, firmer. I stopped shrinking to make them comfortable. I began living on my own terms. One afternoon, months later, I passed their house on a walk. My mom waved from the porch, a small, genuine smile, replacing the practiced one. My sister stood by the window, not hiding. I waved back and kept walking. I had won by not becoming them, by refusing their script. The revenge they feared wasn't revenge at all. It was a life reclaimed, steady and unbothered. Sometimes the most effective ending isn't to break someone, but to rebuild yourself. They would remember that. And I could finally stop remembering the hurt